All right, Maureen Broderick, thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Joe.
I know that you're the author of The Art of Managing Professional Services, and certainly a noted expert with regard to high-performance teams. Wanted to ask a little bit about your perspective, particularly in this business climate. Executives across all industries and functions are struggling with how they can motivate and inspire their teams to better performance. During your career working with professional services firms, are there best practices you've seen in terms of building the raw essentials of a high-performance team?
Well, interestingly, Joe, I think that professional services firms in general, across the industry, across segments, are a best practice in finding, recruiting, managing, growing their professional teams. I guess you'd kind of expect it in a professional service firm. They are, after all, the people is the product. So it makes sense that they would take care in recruiting and training and nurturing their people. But I think it's especially interesting in how they do it. And I think the key is there's a mentality in professional services that I think is a little bit different vis-a-vis a corporate environment. It's more of a stewardship. I classify it as a stewardship mentality. Sort of we are here to nurture and grow and take care of our people professionally, not sort of a we own them mentality. When you come on board in a professional service firm as a professional in the firm, you're given a lot of responsibility pretty instantly. You're expected to contribute. You're given interaction with clients early on. You are given a lot of freedom in a professional service environment, and as long as you don't violate the basic rules of the road, the values and the culture of the organization, you're really allowed to grow. You're only held back by your willingness, to work and learn and grow is really the only holdback. And I look at professional service firms and I go, so what's the key? How do they do this? Well, number one, I think they really commit time and resources to talent management. It's really very, very important to them, and everybody in the firm is expected to play a role, from the senior partners in the organization to first-year people working on the team. Everybody participates in recruiting, in training, in mentoring programs, and it's expected and it's rewarded. And if you don't participate, you're held accountable for it. So, and they invest a huge amount of time in thinking through who they recruit into their organizations. These are the good firms. The best ones strategically profile the people that they're looking for so that they're not only a good cultural fit for the firm, but they're an excellent technical fit for this firm at every stage. So they're looking to bring a partner on board. This is the criteria for how we recruit a partner and what we're looking for. First year right out of college, law student, here's what we're looking for: culturally, technically, personality, et cetera. And they pay a lot of attention to it. Interviewing is a collaborative affair. There were some firms that we studied, Bain Capital, as a matter of fact, closes down the whole organization for like 2-3 days when they're in their recruiting season, and everybody participates in recruiting. It's that important of an activity. So recruit right from the start is a best practice in the best professional service firms. They invest massively in training. Even the small firms in professional services firms, even if they can't afford to field their own giant in-house universities, they invest in training their teams either through online programming or meetings, and lots of meetings where they talk about best practices and talk about their client work and engagement. Training is important. Career development is important. They spend a lot of time articulating their culture and their values and what's expected to their people, and they march them along and evaluate them on a very regular basis. The good firms are really good at evaluation. And I think bottom line is the senior team is held accountable for their participation in recruiting, managing, and nurturing people. You don't do it, it impacts your pocketbook at the end of the year. Those are some of the keys, I think.
Okay, wow. With regard to your training and development piece, I mean, I think on the corporate side of the ledger, I've heard expressed some concern that if you invest too heavily into that new employee, or even that new manager, that new leader coming into the organization, there's always the risk that they could absorb a lot of that training and development time and expertise and then go off to somebody else. I think that's a sense, I think, within the corporate space. I mean, should corporate employers be concerned about that? What's your take on that?
Well, it's a sort of a two-edged sword, because even of course, in the professional service world, just like the corporate world, there's always a risk, and you train these people in the professional service firms in particular. Your people are stored in their brain as your intellectual capital. And they can go down the elevator at the end of the day and not come back the next day, and there goes your, intellectual capital and how your methodology and everything walks out the door. So it's a risk. It's a risk for professional service firms. However, I think that particularly when you're dealing with senior people, knowledge workers, which everyone wants knowledge workers in our, service-focused economy. For knowledge workers, training is a very seductive perk to lure them. Number one, from a recruiting standpoint, it's a very important tool. Number two, for keeping them within the organization, it's really important because they like it. They want to learn, and they realize you're investing in them, and I think you keep them. So, do you do it and hope to keep them longer? Do you not do it because you think they're going to walk out the door? I say you do it, and you invest, and it's worth the gamble. Okay,
so it sounds like there's a real accountability in some of the best firms that you've studied. There's a real personal accountability as well as a team accountability and organizational accountability to get the people thing right, and to get it sorted, and to really invest and really hope that the collegiality, the culture, retains and invigorates people. Is that a fair way?
I think that's absolutely fair. Ernst & Young, one of our clients and one of my favorite firms that I think I have 3 or 4 case studies in my book on Ernst & Young, they really have what I would call a people-focused culture. And they talk about it constantly. Jim Turley, who's the leader of Ernst & Young globally, said to me, and I believe him because I know the organization, he said, Maureen, we don't make a major strategic decision in this firm on any scope without really stepping back and assessing the impact on our people. And is this going to disrupt our values or our culture of our organization? How will this impact our people? And they really mean it. And you can sense it. Culturally, you walk into that place, you feel it. So it's very collegial, it's very collaborative, and people know they're worth something, at the firm.
Okay. I guess the last question I have for you, Maureen, is your take on how critical it is for executive leaders to build high-performance teams. It seems now that today's executives are under incredible pressure. They're doing more with less. All eyes are on those executive leaders for inspiration, and I've heard from a number of people at the executive level that one of their biggest challenges is managing and creating the right dynamics to get the results they need from a high-performance team. What advice would you have for executives to sort of build and sustain and energize a team and create a team that's capable of delivering incredible results?
Well, it's a tough job, number one. I devote a chapter of my book to leadership. Of course, I'm specifically talking about professional service firms, but I think the leadership of the big and sort of best professional service firms are good role models for all corporate executives. Although corporate executives might go, oh my God, I can't imagine working in a partnership environment where everybody owns a piece of the action, and what must that be like? But we asked all the 150 senior leaders of professional service firms in our research for my book, what were the key criteria to be a leader in a professional service firm, that basically has a whole number of smart, quirky, professionals who, temperamental, can walk out the door at any time. What are the top skills? And interestingly, I think in my book I cite like 15 top skills. Every single one of them relate to emotional intelligence, listening skills, collaborative skills, ability to listen to everybody, and absorb people's thoughts, before you act, so that at least even if you do what your partners don't want you to do, you've listened to them and they've shared a voice. It's way down the list that comes up, understands the business, which I find really interesting. It's all about collaboration, teamwork, sincerity, ethics.
Okay. So it sounds like that. It sounds like that emotional intelligence can create or demonstrate or reflect the credibility and the authenticity of the leader, and that might have a ripple effect on the people around him.
I think
or her.
it does. I think it very much does, and not just with the leader, but the whole leadership team. Okay. Needs to embody that culture and values of the organization.
Great. Maureen Broderick, thanks very much for spending the time.
You're welcome, Joe.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.